What's your favorite kind of candy? Mine, absolutely, since I was a chubby little child, would have to be Reese's. With the average American consuming around 8 pounds of candy per year, we really have a sweet tooth. However, if you ask the Marines that fought in the Battle of Chosin Reservoir, they'd say they owed their lives to one candy and one candy alone: Tootsie Rolls. This story is about one unbelievable screw-up turning into one hell of a blessing. One of those you do the wrong math but still get the right number situations. The Tootsie Roll airdrop.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.
But before I can tell you the story of the chosen few, let's take a ride back in the past, back to a time when candy wasn't quite candy, when you can just melt some sugar and call it a day. That was your sweet treat. However, for Leo Hirschfeld, not Hershey, Hirschfeld, his journey as a chocolatier started when he stepped foot into America. The Austrian immigrant had no idea the candy that he would make would one day save the lives of thousands of Marines. After a long 13-day journey across the Atlantic, Leo Hirschfeld found himself with no money, no friends, no family, but he was in the land of milk and honey. So he fell back on what he knew best: candy. After all, his father owned a sweet shop back in the homeland, so he followed in his father's footsteps, making candy and sweet treats for the neighborhood kids. Now, I feel like this is the part in the story where he could have branched off into two ways, one of those choose your own journeys. He could have had a profitable life as a chocolatier, or he could have had a promising career as a H.H. Holmes meets John Wayne Gacy. Because if I would have stopped right there and not put a positive tone on this, it could have been a horror movie. Hey kids, want some candy? I got a puppy in the van. But thankfully though, this ain't a slasher flick. The candy cocktail artist's first break into the sweets market was when he created Bromagdalin, kind of the first Jell-O in 1895. However, Bromagdalin was more than just a Jell-O to Hirschfeld. It was his first real success as a chocolatier. His product was flying off the shelves, being produced in a number of flavors from strawberry, raspberry, cherry, and chocolate. His Jell-O was being used in kitchens and restaurants everywhere, cementing his legitimacy in the candy community. Due to the fact that refrigeration wasn't a common thing at the time, many stores didn't sell chocolate during the summer months because chocolate melts. But they say luck is the ability to recognize an opportunity. Seeing an opening in the sweet aisle during the summer months, Leo Hirschfeld saw an opportunity. So he took inspiration from his Bromagdalin and made a chocolate treat that could fill the open gap. And in 1896, Leo found if he applied heat between the steps of making taffy, it would rise and become fluffy. If taffy was a tortilla, he invented bread. Taking the nickname of his daughter Clara, the Tootsie Roll was born. Being rolled out onto the market in 1-cent units, these little dog turds became an instant hit with children due to their cheap price. And in 1917, the Sweets Company of America went public, listing in the New York Stock Exchange. However, by 1921, Leo Hirschfeld was forced out of his own company. But this man, Leo, he was a chocolatier at heart. He started another company, the Mel's Candy Co. Where he got that name, no idea, but Mel's Candy Co. This business, however, failed to take off because his wife was put into a New York funny farm and his own health started to fail. With the weight of his wife in a nut house, his own health failing, and having to start a new business from the ground up, Leo chose to take the long nap, pulling a Kurt Cobain. Yet with Hirschfeld gone, his legacy still lived on. His little Tootsie Rolls were a hit with the refugees of the Great Depression. For only 1 cent, families that had low to no means could still provide a candy smile to their children. Soon, even the military recognized the popularity of these little taffy rolls. They started putting them in soldiers' food rations as a little morale boost for the homesick soldiers. I mean, after all, who doesn't like dessert after a meal? Look at me. Now flash forward to November of 1950 at the Battle of Chosin Reservoir, where these little diaper turds saved the lives of thousands of men. Because during the battle, bullets weren't the only thing these men had to worry about. They had to worry about the cold too. The temperatures averaged between -5 to -35 degrees. So frostbite was almost as common as bullet casualties. People aren't the only ones, however, that hate the cold. So did their food rations and their fuel lines. Diesel fuel starts to freeze around 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was a minimum 30 degrees colder than that at the warmest times during the battle. That being said, the cold started rupturing the fuel lines, disabling vehicles one by one. Being stranded with frozen food, these men were in an unwinnable position. In an attempt to defend themselves and the mountain, the men, they expended every mortar they had. So naturally, what do you do when you run out of ammunition? You call for more. These mortars, they look like Tootsie Rolls, their color scheme at least. So they were codenamed Tootsie Rolls. When the men, however, they ordered their mortars, there was a failure to communicate. Because the man that received that transmission, he must have forgot his fucking cheat sheet that day. He had no idea what the men were ordering. He was confused and bewildered, but he heard the panic in their voice, so he sent the transmission on down to the boys at the logistics. This was probably the most confusing game of telephone that was ever played in the world. I digress. The Marines, however, they soon saw their prayers answered when pallets on parachutes soon started falling from the sky. But like a genie, when you get your 3 wishes, be careful what you wish for. Because when these men flocked around the parachuted pallets, they were horrified to see that there wasn't mortars. There was Tootsie Rolls. However, the men made the best of a bad situation because, again, their food was frozen and it had been about 2 weeks. So, like a 3-year-old getting to the pantry after Halloween, they gorged on candy. This was kind of if a life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, I guess. Even though this lemonade has a fuckload of sugar. I wonder how many of them became diabetic. It's an honest question I have. I'm gonna Google that. With candy in their bellies and candy in their pockets, the men could finally sit down for a second, regroup, and come up with a new plan. However, that's when they realized the true blessing that had just landed in their laps, which was now filling their pockets. With a little bit of heat, these Tootsie Rolls would become malleable like Play-Doh, but when they were cooled down, they would hold their shape and become hard as a rock. This spark of inspiration quickly turned into an idea that spread like wildfire. Why don't we MacGyver these fuel lines with this putty Play-Doh like chewed up glue? Rushing to heat up the Tootsie Rolls and fix the vehicles, the Marines' hopes grew as each truck started to turn over. After 2 weeks of fighting, the 15,000 man element lost around 10,000 men to artillery, bullets, and frostbite. And these survivors became known as the Chosen Few. And the Chosen Few all credit Leo Hirschfeld with saving their lives with his candy chocolate turds. If an Austrian man never stepped foot on American soil, then 15,000 men may have never came home. That just goes to show you, keep doing what you're doing because you too may inadvertently save thousands of lives by not stepping on a butterfly. Who fucking knows? If you enjoyed my video on blessings in disguise, then please leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, see you beautiful bastards in the next video.
Yoo-hoo! I'll make you famous.
Was running short of 60 millimeter mortar shells, and so we called the Air Force, and the Marine that was called was very frantic. He said, "We need Tootsie Rolls, we need Tootsie Rolls, get us Tootsie Rolls right now." And when the Air Force flew us in supposed to be mortar shells, we got Tootsie Rolls, but that was a good thing because we had a stack of Tootsie Rolls and I stuffed my pockets full of Tootsie Rolls, and that's all I had to eat for 78 miles. Because